Hey there! Let's have a look at this pen. This was a pen that I specifically asked Joost Appelboom if he could lend me because it was a brand I'd not heard of before. It's Endless, and this is the Endless Creator. And as you may be able to tell, this is a retractable nib pen. There are other retractable nib pens, Pilot Vanishing Point, Decimo come to mind. And there was also the Platinum Curidas, of course. Now there's this pen. The big difference between all these pens is that this one is really affordable, relatively speaking, at about 41 euros. Remember, clicking the banner, Appelboom banner on my website gives you 10% discount now. That makes it even more affordable. But of the pens I mentioned, this one is the most affordable. So let's cover the parts of the pen. I'll do a writing sample. I'll tell you what I like about it, what I don't like about it. Let's get started. Okay, let's talk about the Endless Creator. So it comes in this box, has an outer sleeve, which is a little hard to get off, but I managed. Endless, kind of a cute logo. The box has some paperwork, which really just has a picture on one side. Then filling instructions on the other. It is interesting. I will try to take this apart and show you the workings because there is definitely some stuff going on there. Comes with one cartridge as well as a converter and of course the actual pen. Let's talk about that pen. I will first show it to you next to a Pilot Metropolitan right there. So it's, I'd say, about the same girth and maybe a little longer with retractable nib, right? So especially once uncapped, it's a slightly longer pen. What can I say about this? It's an ABS outer body. The nib is sealed, so it shouldn't dry out. I haven't really had it dry out, I will say that. Can take cartridges and converters, both included. Nib sizes, you have extra fine, fine, and medium in stainless steel. And also a Fude nib, which is €8.26 extra. €8.26 does not sound like an awful lot, but for a $40 pen, that's almost a fifth of the price that would be added, right? Let's talk about the parts of this pen. So let's start, and what would usually wouldn't really be the cap. Anyway, let's just start at this end. We have a push button, and that's also feels like, I don't know if it's a metal. Maybe this is an aluminum. It's a little hard to tell. Could be a plastic. We have the logo again, and we have facets. I want to make them catch the light. Nice thing about that is this will not roll off your desk. I mean, if you push it that way, sure, but I mean, it won't actually roll, which is nice. Clip, a little flimsy. I'll come back to that, but I mean, it does the job. And then, of course, we have the clicking mechanism. Let me zoom out a tiny bit. And then we have that nib. That nib is certainly reminiscent of a, say, a Pilot Vanishing Point in shape. Very thin and skinny, but I mean, so is a Curidas. I mean, that's what you get if you have a retractable nib. Now, when you open up this pen, I'm just doing that here, then here we have the barrel piece, and then we have the, let's call it the section piece. I'll show you what it looks like when I really hold it in just a sec, but I want to show you the mechanism first. So we have here this metal part. Let me zoom in a bit so you can actually see it better. We have here this metal part that you can actually pull out. Now, this whole unit sorry, I had to pull that a little awkwardly, but the whole nib unit does come out. It has an arrow to show you which way it goes in. I'm not making fun of that. That's a good idea because people can get confused, try to push it in the wrong way and bend their nib out of shape. This piece too is faceted on this end. So if you have to put it down, it's nibbed down. It won't roll anywhere. That's clever design. It comes to one of these converters that I've seen for the first time as the Monteverde Mini converter, but I'm sure other brands make them. These are slightly smaller capacity converters with a little sort of push plunger system. It's kind of nice. You can easily pull that out. I just did so. Right, here you got the two pieces. It was too fast, wasn't it? Here you have the two pieces, you could of course just put a cartridge in. Now the nice thing is, if you push on this, ink will come spurting out the front end. So this metal protector piece is a good idea. Otherwise, with the clicky system, you've got a squirting pen, and that's not necessarily a fun thing. Okay, when you're ready to go, put that back in, follow the arrow, and then you can screw this back into place. I wouldn't over tighten this, because then the facets don't really align properly anymore. And I know ABS is pretty tough, but I feel like I might be able to crack that if I push those threads hard enough. Sip of tea, people, give me a second. Beyond that, we got something pretty funny. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sides. Kind of comfortable. Clicky system works. I wonder a little bit if this is one of those Fuda nibs, because it does seem to be pointed up, but I have the feeling this is one of their regular nibs, but I couldn't find a clear marking on the box. So you gotta bear with me here. That means I also don't really know if this is a fine or a medium. It looks to me something like fine or medium. There's no marking. If there's no marking, I don't know, right? I can't, I'm not a mind reader or a nib reader. To me, nothing gets in the way. The clip doesn't get in the way. The section is small enough that I can use it, but I can't make my thumb and index finger really touch unless I would go down much farther and really hold it down there. I don't think I'm supposed to put my fingers there. I think they're supposed to go here. Flat facet at the bottom, nice for your curled up middle finger, index finger and thumb, pretty good here. So what you want to see is how it writes. And we're going to look at that next. I'll zoom out a little bit. Here we have the endless creator, sorry, nib, not quite sure, but I'm going with fine or medium, probably fine. I don't think it's an extra fine. And the ink is Delft's Blauw from Ackerman, because it is so washable, and that's really nice if you have to do a lot of reviews. Okay, writing. Pretty pleasant writer. There is definitely feedback, so maybe be aware of this. I don't think this is the absolute smoothest nib you have ever tried in your life. That's not to say it's scratchy either. But there is definitely feedback. Wetness, bear in mind this is a slightly drier ink, but pretty well-tuned nib, I would say. Line variation, this is what makes me think that this was not really a Fude, although there seems to be some line variation. It's really hard to tell, people. Little bit of line variation. As to flexiness, always very careful. It's a pretty rigid nib. Reverse writing, for those who enjoy such a thing, is hard because then the clip gets in the way of your middle finger. But if I really try, I can more or less do it. And I would, oh sorry, I can't write anymore. Then I definitely have some sort, God, I can't talk either. Can't write, can't talk. Anyway, I have some sort of extra fine nib. Pretty cool. So, let's talk about likes and dislikes. One thing I think I forgot to mention in the dislikes, which I already recorded, sometimes the button can be a little sticky, but I found that is mainly the case when you've just inked the pen. So I think that's just because the spring inside just needs to settle after reassembly. I wouldn't worry too much about that. Let's talk about likes and dislikes. What do I like and what do I not like about the Endless Creator? It's, as I said before, a relatively affordable model. I know that affordable is always a relative term, but when it comes to fountain pens, 41 euros is not that bad, given that you have 410 euros, 4,100 euros, etc. pens. And then someone always says, what about the $5 Chinese pen? Yeah, I know. I'm not talking about a $5 Chinese pen, I'm talking about this pen, which relatively speaking is pretty affordable. When you look at prices, I did look it up. The Curadas on the Applebaum website, I just use that because Joost lent me this pen, is 71 euros, so that's a 30 euro price jump. The Pilot Vanishing Point is $168 US on the Goulet, and the Decimo is $160 there. Now those two do have gold nibs, whereas the other two, the Curadas and this one, have stainless steel nibs. Having said that, if you're looking for a retractable nib pen, if you want to experiment with it, I think currently this is your cheapest option, unless there is a pen that I'm not aware of, which is entirely possible. So what I'm trying to say is, relatively speaking, it's pretty affordable. It's also pragmatic. It's in my mind, retractable nib fountain pens solve a problem that I never knew I had. And frankly, I don't feel like I have that problem. I'm never in a situation where I need to uncap a pen with one hand desperately. But that I don't experience that does not mean that that is not a reasonable quest in the fountain pen community. I know there are many people in different types of jobs. I know of chefs, I know of police officers who can actually use a pen that's operated with one hand much more easily than a pen that requires unscrewing or clicking or whatever. So, for me, it's an interesting gimmick. I don't really have use for it, but other people might. That's how I wanted to put that. Another pro for me for this pen is that I find it very pragmatic and unassuming. I mean, it's ABS plastic, there's nothing really fancy about it, but it's also, that's kind of reflected in the price, which I think is pretty fair for what you get. Cons in this pen, I can't say that I have found that many. The one thing I will say is, if you look at this clip, it's pretty flimsy, and I'm pretty sure that with just one finger I can bend this out of shape. So that's something I'd be a little careful of. Beyond that, I think it's pretty reasonable for what you get. Their mechanism, which is supposed to make your nib not dry out in any way, shape or form. This is really not working, I'm sorry. It hasn't dried out for me, but I would love to hear your experiences if you have experienced, if you own this pen and you've played with it, see if it dried out for you. It's always interesting for people to read. That's pretty much it. Thank you to Joost for lending me this. I hope this was useful. I'll gladly see you later. Bye!